Hi, I'm Amy Shannon from Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast, where stories speak, voices matter, and words come alive. If you are following this on Spotify, please follow the podcast. Um, Now, the interviewees uh, have the option of having an audio only podcast session or a video podcast session. This is a video podcast session, and I hope that you enjoy it. It will also be shown on YouTube. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. Thank you. Good evening, listeners. I'm Amy Shannon, and welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast, conversations, revelations, and inspirations behind the book. You never know where the conversation is going to lead us, so let's find out. Tonight we have a guest with us. Thank you for joining us, and will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm R. Weir, R. Weir, Weir. Randy's my first name, but my author books R. Weir, and I live out in Colorado, and just today is releasing my 16th book, which is hard to believe. I even brought a copy of it here, so I guess
Cool.
I got my paperbacks to sell. So, but I'm happy to be on the show. And Amy's, you've reviewed, I think, every one of my books through the years, which is wonderful.
Yeah. I was thinking about that when I last night when I was just kind of anticipating our conversation. I remember one of the first books I read was The Case of the Missing Bubblegum Card. And I'm like, wow, I just thought about how long ago that was. But ever since I was introduced to Jarvis Mann, he's like, to me, he's the guy, he's he's one of my favorite detective characters. So I see why that your books are so popular, because he's just, I don't know, there's rugged and kind, and he's got a bunch of flaws, but he's always got the right thing in mind, and will do whatever he can for his clients and things like that. And I like how you add in part of his personal life, but also, and whatever case he's working on. And, I remember a scene, I can't remember which book it was. I've read all of them. So, that he was supposed to be surveilling something, but all he could think about was a night that he spent with a woman, and I can't remember her name, but that's all he was, trying to do surveillance. And so what do? You watch this house, building, people, whatever. And that always just kind of stuck out with me. I really like that, because that's got to be what people do. I mean, seriously, on stakeouts, there's just two people sitting there, or Jarvis is by himself. So, okay, that's my fangirl stuff about Jarvis. And so, yes, today, at the time of this recording, it's the 13th of January. I'm just letting people know that since your book had been released this morning, I posted my review already. And congratulations on it, first of all. And what I was thinking about was, how did Jarvis Mann come about?
So that first, I'm getting a little ahead, so let me try to go too bad here. That first book, The Case of the Missing Bubblegum Card, I actually wrote that in the 80s. Long time before the days of self-publishing, whatever. It was just a little story. It was in my head. And a lot of people go, why didn't you say baseball card? Well, they were known as bubblegum
cards. Yes.
It came with a horrible stick of lousy bubblegum. And
yeah.
I think most people threw the bubblegum away and kept
it. We all tried it once, and then that was it.
Yeah, it's really bad. I don't even know if they give a piece of bubblegum with cards anymore, but that was what it was like when I was growing up. And but I always have liked the snarky private eye that's got an attitude and a little bit of humor, and very flawed. He makes a lot of mistakes. A lot of people sit there and say, well, he's kind of dumb that he actually did that. Well, sometimes he isn't always thinking straight, especially in the early books. He's gotten better through the years. But that first book was kind of, I was always a big Robert B. Parker fan. I read all the Spencer novels. I always enjoyed The Private Eye, The Gumshoes, Philip Marlowe, all those, that was always kind of the stuff I read, and then the spy thrillers and things like that. But I always wanted to create a character, and it was coming up with that first name, Jarvis, which we make fun of through the series. A lot of people think, it sounds like a butler name, and all that. And he was named after a grandparent way back who did live in England. And then I thought man would sound like a very tough,
Yeah, he's manly.
two arms instead
Yeah.
of one. But I've always enjoyed that genre, and I always like that. And I keep coming back to Jarvis. I actually retired after Man in the Crossfire, and then I wrote the Divine Devils series, which did very well, and I won a lot of big awards for that, and that was great. And I kind of retired him, and it's like I kind of missed bringing him back because my other characters main characters are different. He's getting his rear end kicked in a fight, and he'll be cracking jokes. That was his way of dealing with it. And I've often kind of gone back to MASH, where Hawkeye in the worst situations would make humor when someone's crying on a table in front of him, bleeding and all that. That was his way of dealing with it. And that's the way
Exactly. Yeah.
Jarvis always dealt with it. But he's a character that I continue to come back to, and his sense of humor is very much my sense of humor.
That's really good to know then.
That attitude and that thing, and I always would crack jokes, maybe at the most inopportune times, that people would look at me like, "What's wrong with you?" And stuff. But I always enjoyed Jarvis, and I've actually begun, because there's a little bit of a thread that I left open at the end of Mayhem in Music City, and that idea was in my head, so I've actually started that part of the book to resolve that little piece that was still hanging at the end of Mayhem, and then it will blend into a new case going down the road. Right now it's just called Jarvis 12 so far.
That is amazing. I mean, Jarvis is he's a character that you want to get to know, I mean, his, like you said, he cracks jokes when he thinks when it's inappropriate, but that's just his way of dealing with something. But, then he feels very real. It feels like a real person. A lot of times we'll say how great characters are, but sometimes I just call them people, because they're people that are in your head, and you're solving these great, interesting cases. And of course you want, for a good story, everything has to go wrong or go sideways or even upside down, and sometimes you just don't know who to trust or how Jarvis is going to actually react to something. So it's, that's why I love it, and it's really weird. I was a fan of Dick Tracy comic books when I was younger, so I really like the detectives, and I've written some of my own. I've switched genres recently, but I have a few books that had unique private detectives. So
yeah, when it's written in first person too, you're always hearing his thoughts and his mind and stuff. And some of those thoughts are mine, the way a man thinks, obviously different than the way a woman thinks, and what kind of pops into his head in the weirdest situations. And that's kind of the way I've always been. And I've always enjoyed throwing those things out there. Like you said, when he's on a stakeout, it's kind of one of the most boring things in the world. What do you do to kill the time? You listen to music. If you have somebody with you, somebody to talk with. Well, he's had some people that are with him on stakeout when he had Wolf might be nearby, or he had Rocky there. They weren't the most talkative guys in the world. So he'd be usually talking, and they'd be like giving one-word answers in response sometimes, or looking at him cross-eyed, going, "Shut up, bud. I don't need to hear this."
And that's kind of like a podcast too. Sometimes you have those interviews that you'll ask them someone a question and they'll be like, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah.
You're like trying to pull all the information out. And some people just want to be quiet, but you gotta talk. No, people know what's on your mind. And I'm curious, like, because I know you've been very successful. I follow your newsletter. I see when you go to book events and things like that. And actually, I think I even asked you for advice a few years ago when I did my first book event, and it was very helpful. Thank you very much. But do you get different types of reactions based off of? And I'm going to say this, and I don't want it to come out wrong. Like, if a man reads your book, do you get a different reaction about your story than if a female reads your book?
Sometimes, yes. Some people lock on to different characters sometimes in the book. Like in the Divine Devils series, I had Athena in there, and there was Valerie, who was kind of a antagonist to Athena, and sometimes people lock on those characters if they're a female reader and stuff. But I think generally speaking, if the story is character driven, people like it. Now, I've had some people who didn't like Hunter Divine. They felt like he just wasn't they didn't like it for whatever reason. I don't know why, but he was kind of written that way. He was not necessarily supposed to be completely liked just because of what he had gone through in his life. And
right, yeah.
But occasionally, yes, I do get that. I think the biggest thing for me is, like, I got an email today from a lady, and I sent my newsletter, went out yesterday, and I get some responses from the emails, and she had read the Devil series and loved it, and she wanted to know what else to read in the series. She wanted what else, and I said, well, that series is over, so but I've got the Jarvis series, and I've got the.
She's like, hurry up, write more.
Yeah. And I do get that a lot too. I've had some people say, I wish you could write faster. And I was, well, if you want them bad, I guess I could write faster.
If you want my first draft, have at it.
My brain doesn't quite roll them out quite that easy.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the nice thing about the events is getting the interaction with someone. And I think that's probably what I told you. It's talk to them about the books, what they like to read. I get people walk by the table, and sometimes I didn't look at your books, and I say, hey, do you like to read? And if they answer you back, they don't. They do? Oh, yeah. Or no, I don't. And I say, okay, well, have a good day. But
okay. You don't like to read, but you're at a book event.
Yeah, what genre do they enjoy, right? So
yeah,
it's like, well, you like mystery crime? Well, maybe you'd be interested in my books, and we go from there. And I always give away a couple of free ebooks too for anyone who signs up for my newsletter. So that's always kind of a way to get them in and to see if they like to read ebooks. And some people, and I have a small, like, $5 book. Some people will write, hey, $5 for a book, I'll give that a shot and see if they like it, and then they hopefully go from there. But that interaction at those events is priceless, and it's great when I hear people come back, say, the next year and say, oh yeah, you're here again. Yeah, I bought the book and I want to get more, or maybe they'll buy a whole series. And
that's really great, because that was one of the things. Like, the last time I did a book signing, it was in 2004, or no, 2005, when my first book was published. They put me and other print-on-demand authors way in the back of a Barnes & Noble, and that was it. It was like, okay, I sat there for 2 hours just kind of twiddling my thumbs. I picked up my book and started reading it. But when I went to did my book event, because I recently switched to nonfiction historical, mostly local history. And my first book, I had to find a place. I wanted a place that was historical, and this old landmark house was converted into a bar. So when I asked them, he's like, yeah, sure, sit out front. And I would have people walking. I invited a lot of people, let people know, and people that I knew came, they bought the book, and I saw them and chatted. But a lot of the people that were going into the bar, they bought the book, went inside, started reading it while they're drinking their beer or their wine or whatever. And then when they came out, they started doing conversations. And, there was a lot of stuff that, they skimmed through and they didn't know. And also it was kind of fun to point out that there was an error on the landmark sign. So that was something that had never been fixed, but it's just one of those things people don't think about because if you're used to that kind of stuff. But I enjoyed just talking to people. A few told me that I should send a copy of my book to like the school district, so I did. Just because it's now I'm working on. I finished my second one, and I'm looking forward to doing at least another event in the future. So I'm kind of trying to do that. But yeah, you were really right on. I mean, I asked you about how many books I should have, and I bought 20 and I came home with 2, so I was pretty happy about that.
Right.
And I talked to a lot of people, and that was what I liked too. So I got that, and I do thank you so much for your advice, because I was like, I haven't done this. Just trying to figure out what to do. And
yeah, craft fairs I do really well at. I've done a few where I'll sell. I've had a couple 2-day events. I've done over 90 books, and I've done over 50 books at a couple of events. I had one of the last ones I did this year was the best one I had done all year. So yeah, they can be really good, and sometimes they can be really bad. I've had some where I've sold no books. So yeah.
Yeah, I had an author recently.
One in the back, nobody even knows you're there.
Exactly. It's kind of like it reminds me, my kids and I were talking about my sons. We were talking about the grocery store, and I said, well, why do you think they put milk in the back of the store? So you can go all the way back because you need milk. So, they need your book, they'll keep going. But you want it, and come in. I'll give you some glasses of milk. But you, so you're also a family man.
Yeah, I've got a wife. She's actually working in the room next to me. She actually works at home these days. My daughter's living us these days. She works full time, also online, and then is doing school.
Nice.
And we have a couple of dogs, which we have. We have a lab and a American pit bull who's a terror at times and all that. So, but yeah, we do that, and I do travel quite a bit in an RV when I do events. We're going to be down at the Tucson Festival of Books in March, which was a big event I was invited to. I submitted my book, and
if you are ever in New York, I live in upstate New York, and if there's ever an event that you go to, let me know.
Yeah, Thriller Fest is a big one that's in New York every year, but I've never gone to that one. It's one of the huge author events. I've been to BoucherCon, Killer Nashville. I generally do every year. BoucherCon next year is going to be in Calgary. The year after that, I think, is going to be Washington D.C. So,
wow,
too, depending.
Boy, you are a traveler.
Yeah, well, I'm mostly retired these days. My wife can work mobilely, so as long as we have a good internet connection, she can pretty much work while we drive. We spent 2 weeks in Nashville last year, living out of the motorhome, seeing how that was, and we didn't kill each other, so that was good.
That's good, yeah, that's always good.
Yeah.
Does your family read your books?
My wife has read a few of my books. She doesn't like my writing style as much as I do. She's a little more she feels I'm a little too descriptive sometimes. She likes a little bit, and she reads mysteries and stuff, but not more. She likes more of the paranormal and the fantasy type books and things like that.
I have a few paranormal. You can send her to my Amazon profile. But my kids are the same thing. They like I just released my second children's book. I used to write for my kids when they were little. Now they're grown. But when I each one when after I wrote it and edited it before I put any graphics in it, they wanted me. I'm like, here, will you read this? They wanted me to read it to them. And that was just kind of, it was kind of cool if that's what they wanted. I mean, because, we loved it when I loved it when I would read to my kids, and I'd write stories where they were main characters and things like that. And so they really, they'd rather me read it to them. And I think that's kind of cool because it is nice being read to sometimes.
Well, she likes my audiobooks. My narrator, Philip Polite, who did my Divine Devil series, she likes listening to that series on Audible, and she can listen while she's working at the same time. She's one of those, she can still work. I can't do that. I can't listen to two things.
I will listen to an audiobook and read another book at the same time just to try to keep up. But I understand. Turn it up really loud and catch your ear. So, but
yes, but yes, the audiobooks, she does like that, and I'm actually going to have the other two in that series made into audiobooks with this as well. So he's going to see those for a few weeks. So.
When they're released, let me know so I can review them, because some people don't think about it, but audiobooks you kind of review in a different way. You review the story, but you also review the narration and if it fits, because I've heard books where the voice just doesn't fit the story, the way it's told. And I'm actually been very surprised with some of the virtual voice audiobooks and the voices that have come. I've tried a few on mine just to test it out and see what happens, and I was pretty impressed. But there's nothing like a real person telling their story, So yeah, when your books get released on audio, definitely let me know.
Sure.
And if you for your if people were going to contact you, would they go through your website?
Yeah, that's the best place. It's Weir, so RWEIR author.com is my new domain. I put up a new website this past year. Cool. My old one was getting a little long in the tooth, so this is much nicer and has its own built-in bookstore, so people can buy signed paperbacks through there. In small merchandise, we have bags. We have a little stuffed animal that's Kogel, who's in the Justice for the Forgotten series. He's the Belgian melon canine. My wife and daughter put that together, and we've sold a few of those at events. People like that, and we have some bags with the logos on them. We'll eventually have some more T-shirts again with logos.
I like that shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Nice. We've got to get going on those. We may even have some mugs that have logos on them as well. So, but yeah, so that's the website's the best place. So there's a contact form. Like I said, you can sign up for the newsletter there. You always get the latest, and the newsletter is the best way to hear the latest about my books and what's coming, and what I'm writing, and a little personal stuff about me as well. So
yeah, I like that. I just recently added on the homepage of amysbookshelfreviews.com a little area where it just kind of shows a brief tour into my life. So I thought that was kind of interesting. People like to know that who you are behind whatever you're doing. But I really want to thank you for being on the show, and thank you, audience, for listening. If you wish to be a guest on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast and schedule your pre-recording. Don't forget, if you wish to comment on this show or any show, comments are available, and yes, I will read them. Please follow this podcast on Spotify. I'm Amy Shannon. Be safe, be well, and always be kind. Thank you for watching this video podcast. Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast is a takeoff of Amy's Bookshelf Reviews website, and which does reviews and also author promotions. You can go to amysbookshelfreviews.com for more information. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe, follow, and keep listening. Thank you.